Welcome to the Timeless Tales Library, where stories flow like gentle streams toward the quiet pools of sleep. I'm Oliver, your evening storyteller, and tonight I'll be sharing a soothing tale to ease your mind and guide you gently towards sleep. The Timeless Tales Library is made possible by listeners like you. If you've found comfort here, please subscribe and help us continue creating these peaceful stories. As you settle in, comment below and let me know where you are in the world tonight, and share a place you dream of, a story taking you to perhaps the spice markets of Marrakesh, a lighthouse on the Maine coast, the rice terraces of Bali, or a cozy bookshop in Edinburgh. Your ideas keep our little library glowing bright. This story is about Alice discovering a magical Christmas wonderland beneath the snow, where familiar friends await her arrival for the most peaceful holiday celebration imaginable, filled with gentle snow, warm lights, and the soft comfort of winter dreams. Now, close your eyes and breathe deeply. You are entering a special section of the Timeless Tales Library, where the books are not made of paper, but of soft, glowing clouds. This is a place for stories of gentle journeys and floating dreams. Each tale is woven from starlight and moonlight, full of tranquil characters and calming landscapes. Feel your body settle into the cloud-like comfort of your bed, your own personal nook in this gentle expanse. Release any tension in your legs, arms, and neck. Let the soft, feathery texture of your blankets and mattress wrap around you. The cloud weavers of the library are here to guide you to a restful sleep. The words of the story are carried on a gentle breeze, a whisper that soothes your mind and body. Let yourself drift with them. Alice and the Christmas Rabbit Hole, from the Christmas Sleep Stories series. The snow had been falling steadily for 3 days now, blanketing the countryside in a pristine layer of white that sparkled like crushed diamonds under the pale December Sunday. Alice sat by her bedroom window, watching the flakes drift lazily past the glass, each one unique and perfect in its delicate dance toward the earth below. The house was quiet save for the gentle crackling of the fireplace downstairs and the soft whisper of wind against the shutters. It was Christmas Eve, and though the warmth of family and celebration filled the rooms below, Alice found herself drawn to this peaceful solitude, mesmerized by the hypnotic rhythm of the falling snow. She pressed her palm against the cool window pane, leaving a small handprint that quickly fogged with her breath. Through the misted glass, the world outside looked dreamlike, softened and made magical by winter's gentle touch. Alice had always been a curious child, prone to following interesting paths wherever they might lead, and today something about the snow-covered garden called to her with an almost musical voice. She could see the old oak tree where she often sat to read, its branches now heavy with snow, creating natural archways and tunnels beneath its protective canopy. And there, just barely visible through the swirling flakes, was something that made her heart skip with wonder. A rabbit, but not just any rabbit. Even at this distance, she could see the familiar flash of a waistcoat, the hurried way it moved, checking what appeared to be a pocket watch before disappearing behind the oak's massive trunk. The white rabbit, here in her own garden on Christmas Eve. Without hesitation, Alice wrapped herself in her warmest cloak, a deep blue velvet that her grandmother had sewn with tiny silver stars, and slipped quietly from the house. The snow crunched softly beneath her boots as she made her way across the garden, following the rabbit's tracks that led in a winding path toward the old oak tree. The winter air was crisp and clean, filling her lungs with each breath and bringing color to her cheeks. Snowflakes caught on her eyelashes, melting quickly, and she could taste the pure sweetness of winter on her tongue. The world around her was hushed, wrapped in snow's natural silence, broken only by the distant sound of church bells ringing across the village, calling people to Christmas Eve service. As Alice approached the oak tree, she noticed something extraordinary. Where the rabbit's tracks should have continued around the trunk, they simply vanished into what appeared to be a hole in the ground, but not the kind of rabbit hole she remembered from her previous adventure. This opening was decorated with tiny evergreen garlands, their needles dusted with snow, and strings of what looked like crystallized berries that caught the light like miniature lanterns. Around the opening, someone had carefully arranged a circle of pine cones, each one painted with delicate silver snowflakes that sparkled in the fading afternoon light. Between the pine cones, small glass ornaments nestled in the snow like colorful eggs in a nest, each one containing what appeared to be a tiny winter scene miniature sledding parties. Ice skating rinks no bigger than a teacup, and snow-covered villages with lights twinkling in windows smaller than Alice's fingernail. The whole itself seemed to glow with a warm, inviting light that pulsed gently, like a heartbeat or the rhythm of peaceful breathing. As Alice knelt beside it, brushing away some of the snow with her mittened hands, she could feel the warmth rising from below, carrying with it the most wonderful scents. She discovered that the opening was lined with soft, moss-green velvet that looked impossibly cozy against the winter landscape, and the velvet itself seemed to shimmer with tiny golden threads that caught the light like captured sunbeams. A small wooden sign, carved with delicate holly leaves and painted with loving care, read, "Christmas visitors welcome, mind the step." Below the main message, in smaller, more delicate script, were the words, "Where every season is the season of wonder, and every heart finds rest." Alice traced the carved letters with her finger, noting how the wood was warm to the touch despite the cold air above ground. Beside the sign, a tiny mailbox no bigger than a jewelry box sat nestled in the snow. Its red paint was cheerful and bright, and a small flag indicated that mail waited inside. Curious, Alice opened the miniature door and found a letter addressed to her in the most beautiful handwriting she had ever seen. The paper was cream-colored and felt like silk between her fingers, and when she unfolded it, golden letters appeared as if written by invisible hands. "Dearest Alice," the letter read, "we have prepared a special Christmas celebration in your honor. Please join us for an evening of warmth, wonder, and the gentlest of adventures. Your presence is the only gift we require. With fondest regards and warmest welcome, your friends in the Christmas realm." Alice smiled at this considerate warning, remembering her last tumbling descent into Wonderland. But this time, as she peered into the glowing tunnel, she could see that thoughtful hands had installed a beautiful spiral staircase that curved gently downward, its banister wrapped in garlands of pine and ribbon. Each step was cushioned with thick, soft carpeting that looked warm and inviting. The scent that rose from the tunnel was intoxicating cinnamon and vanilla, pine needles and wood smoke, with underlying notes of chocolate and peppermint that made Alice's mouth water. It was the essence of Christmas distilled into pure, welcoming fragrance. She could hear something too, the gentle sound of distant music, like a music box playing a lullaby, mixed with soft laughter and the comfortable murmur of friends gathering together. Alice settled herself at the edge of the rabbit hole, letting her legs dangle into the warmth that rose from below. Unlike her previous adventure's sudden fall, this descent felt completely safe and welcoming. She placed one foot on the first step, testing its solidity, and found it perfectly secure. The velvet lining was indeed as soft as it appeared, and warmth seemed to emanate from the very walls of the tunnel. As she began her gentle descent, Alice noticed that the walls were decorated with the most beautiful Christmas murals she had ever seen. Painted in soft, dreamy colors, they showed scenes of winter wonder, deer stepping delicately through snow-laden forests, cardinals perched on holly branches, and cozy cottages with windows glowing golden in the twilight. Each image seemed to move slightly as she passed, as if the paintings were alive with their own gentle magic. The first mural showed a family of rabbits building a snowman together, their movements so lifelike that Alice could almost hear their soft laughter echoing from the painted scene. As she descended further, she passed a painting of children ice skating on a frozen pond, their rosy cheeks and bright scarves seeming to flutter in an unfelt breeze. Another mural depicted a grandmother knitting by a window while snow fell outside, and Alice could swear she saw the knitting needles moving in a gentle, hypnotic rhythm. The most beautiful mural of all showed a great Christmas tree in a town square, surrounded by carolers whose mouths moved silently, their faces filled with joy and peace. As Alice watched, tiny painted snowflakes seemed to drift across the surface of the painting, settling on the carolers' shoulders and caps before disappearing and beginning their gentle dance again. Between the larger murals, smaller paintings filled every available space on the tunnel walls. These showed intimate winter scenes, a cat sleeping by a fireplace, a teapot steaming on a kitchen table set for Christmas breakfast, mittens and scarves hanging by a door to dry, and children's toys arranged hopefully by a chimney. Each small painting was framed with carved wooden borders decorated with holly leaves, candy canes, or tiny bells that actually chimed softly when Alice passed by. The staircase curved downward in a leisurely spiral, never steep enough to cause alarm, always well lit by the warm glow that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Along the banister, someone had wound garlands of real pine boughs interwoven with ribbon that shimmered like starlight. Every few steps, small lanterns hung from the garland, each one containing not a candle but what appeared to be captured fireflies that glowed with gentle golden light. Alice found herself relaxing more with each step, her breathing becoming deeper and more peaceful. The music grew slightly louder as she descended. She could now make out not just silent night, but a whole medley of gentle Christmas carols being hummed by several voices in perfect, unhurried harmony. The voices seemed to come from the walls themselves, as if the very stone was singing. Tiny alcoves carved into the tunnel walls held miniature Christmas displays that took Alice's breath away with their detail and beauty. Some alcoves contained Christmas trees no taller than her hand, each one perfectly decorated with ornaments no bigger than dewdrops. The tiny ornaments were works of art in themselves, miniature snow globes that actually contained swirling snow, little bells that rang with voices high as fairy laughter, and stars that pulsed with their own inner light. Other alcoves held elaborate winter scenes, a tiny frozen pond where porcelain skaters glided eternally in graceful circles, a miniature Christmas market with stalls selling goods too small to see clearly, but beautiful in their perfect detail, and a small nativity scene so lovely and peaceful that Alice found herself pausing at each one, drawn into quiet contemplation of the serene expressions on the tiny figures' faces. One alcove contained a dollhouse-sized library, where miniature books about Christmas stories lined shelves no bigger than matchsticks. Another held a tiny bakery where impossible small loaves of gingerbread bread seemed to emit real warmth and the scent of cinnamon and molasses. Yet another alcove showed a miniature sleigh loaded with presents, pulled by reindeer so small and perfectly formed that Alice had to look closely to make sure they weren't alive. The air grew warmer and more fragrant as she continued down, carrying scents that changed subtly with each step. First came the clean, crisp scent of pine needles and fresh snow, then the warm, comforting smells of cinnamon, vanilla, and baking bread. Next came the cozy aromas of wood smoke and hot chocolate, followed by the festive scents of peppermint, orange peel, and something that reminded Alice of her grandmother's Christmas cookies cooling on the kitchen windowsill. Alice found herself relaxing her grip on her cloak as the temperature became perfectly comfortable, not too warm, not too cool, but exactly the temperature that made her feel most at peace. Her boots made no sound on the carpeted steps, and she felt as though she were floating gently downward rather than walking, carried along by the warm, scented air and the gentle music that seemed to wrap around her like an invisible embrace. As the tunnel began to level out, Alice could see a soft glow ahead that spoke of the approaching end of her journey. The walls widened gradually, and she realized she was entering a vast underground chamber that defied all logic and filled her heart with wonder. She emerged into a Christmas wonderland that took her breath away. The cavern, though it felt nothing like a cave, was enormous, its ceiling lost in a gentle, twinkling darkness that looked exactly like a starry winter sky. Snow fell softly from this impossible sky, but it was warm snow that melted the moment it touched anything, leaving behind only a pleasant tingling sensation and the scent of pine forests. The landscape before Alice was rolling and gentle, covered in the same pristine white snow she had left behind in the world above, but here everything seemed to glow with its own inner light. Christmas trees of every size dotted the snowy hills, some as tall as the great oak in her garden, others small enough to sit on a tabletop. Every tree was perfectly decorated with lights that twinkled like captured stars, and ornaments that seemed to be made from crystallized moonbeams. A river meandered through this underground paradise, its waters so clear and still that it perfectly reflected the starry ceiling above, creating the illusion of walking through space itself. The river was bordered by rushes that looked like candy canes, their red and white stripes spiraling perfectly, and lily pads that were actually large, flat Christmas cookies decorated with green icing and tiny silver pearls. Occasionally, fish swam by that seemed to be made of living tinsel, their scales catching and reflecting the light in mesmerizing patterns. Small bridges crossed the river at regular intervals, each one unique and beautiful. One bridge was made entirely of candy canes woven together like a basket, strong enough to walk on but fragrant with peppermint. Another bridge appeared to be constructed from crystallized gingerbread, its railings decorated with icing that never melted despite the warm air. A third bridge was made of what looked like solidified moonbeams, translucent and glowing with its own gentle light. Along the riverbanks, Christmas gardens bloomed in defiance of winter. Holly bushes grew in perfect spheres, their berries glowing like tiny red lanterns. Poinsettias the size of small trees displayed leaves in every shade from deep crimson to softest pink, and their centers seemed to hold actual stars that twinkled gently. Rose bushes bore flowers that looked like they were carved from ice but felt warm to the touch, and their fragrance was the perfect blend of summer roses and winter pine. The gentle sound of water flowing over smooth stones provided a constant, soothing backdrop to the Christmas carols that seemed to drift on the warm breeze from everywhere and nowhere. Sometimes Alice could hear individual voices in the chorus, a soprano as pure as church bells, a bass as warm as her father's voice, and harmonies that wove together like a musical tapestry of peace and joy. Cottages and small buildings nestled among the hills, all of them glowing with warm golden light from their windows. Smoke curled lazily from their chimneys, and Alice could see that each building was unique. Some looked like gingerbread houses with icing trim and gumdrop decorations. Others resembled cozy English cottages with thatched roofs and climbing roses, and still others were whimsical structures that could only exist in dreams, with curved walls and doors shaped like hearts or stars. Each cottage had its own garden, perfectly maintained despite the snow that fell constantly but never accumulated beyond a beautiful, even layer. Some gardens featured topiary animals, rabbits, deer and birds, all trimmed from evergreen bushes and decorated with tiny lights. Other gardens showed winter vegetables growing impossibly well in the snow, Christmas cabbages with leaves that looked like poinsettia flowers, carrots that glowed like orange lanterns beneath the snow, and fruit trees that bore ornaments instead of fruit. Pathways connected all the buildings, marked not with ordinary stones but with stepping stones that seemed to be made from compressed snow that never melted or became slippery. The paths were lined with lamp posts that looked like giant candy canes, their light warm and inviting, casting everything in a gentle golden glow that made even the snow look cozy and welcoming. As Alice stood taking in this magical scene, breathing in air that tasted of cinnamon and wonder, she noticed that the very atmosphere seemed alive with gentle magic. Snowflakes fell upward as well as downward, creating spiraling dances in the air. Occasionally, a snowflake would pause in mid-air, hovering at eye level long enough for Alice to admire its intricate crystalline structure before continuing on its leisurely journey. As Alice stood taking in this magical scene, she heard a familiar voice call her name. Turning, she saw the white rabbit approaching, but he looked nothing like the harried, anxious creature she remembered. This white rabbit moved with unhurried dignity, his white fur pristine and fluffy, his waistcoat a beautiful deep red velvet embroidered with golden holly leaves. His pocket watch, instead of being a source of anxiety, hung peacefully from a chain that glittered like snow in moonlight. "Alice," the white rabbit said, his voice warm and welcoming, "we've been expecting you. I do hope you don't mind that I led you here on Christmas Eve, but we wanted to share our celebration with you." Alice smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the perfect temperature of this underground realm. "It's beautiful," she whispered, afraid that speaking too loudly might break the spell of this peaceful place. "But won't I be missed at home?" The white rabbit chuckled softly, a sound like bells wrapped in velvet. "Time moves differently here during the Christmas season," he explained, adjusting his waistcoat with unhurried precision. "You could spend days with us, and only minutes would pass in your world above. It's our Christmas gift to visitors, the gift of peaceful time." As they walked together down a path that seemed to be made of compressed snow that never grew cold or slippery, Alice noticed other familiar figures moving about the landscape with the same peaceful serenity that had transformed the white rabbit. Everything about this place seemed designed to bring out the gentlest, most loving aspects of everyone who dwelled here. The Mad Hatter sat at a table beneath a particularly large Christmas tree, but instead of his usual chaotic tea party, he was carefully wrapping presents with ribbons that seemed to tie themselves into perfect bows. His movements were slow and deliberate, and his usual manic energy had been replaced by a contented serenity. His hat, instead of bearing its usual 10/6 price tag, was decorated with holly and mistletoe, and small bells at its brim chimed softly with each movement of his head. The presents he was wrapping were extraordinary. Some changed colors as Alice watched, shifting through gentle rainbows of peaceful hues. Others seemed to contain light itself, glowing softly from within their wrappings. Still others appeared to be breathing gently, as if they contained living dreams waiting to be released. The Mad Hatter worked with loving attention to each package, humming softly to himself as he folded each corner with precise care. The March Hare was nearby, not bouncing about in his usual frantic manner, but reclining peacefully in a rocking chair that seemed to be carved from a single piece of driftwood, worn smooth by countless gentle tides. He was slowly knitting what appeared to be the world's longest Christmas stocking, one that stretched across the snowy ground and disappeared behind a small hill. His ears drooped in the most relaxed way Alice had ever seen them, and he hummed along with the gentle carols that floated through the air, his needles clicking in perfect rhythm with the music. The yarn he worked with was extraordinary. It seemed to contain the essence of different seasons within each strand. Alice could see threads that held the green of spring leaves, the gold of summer sunshine, the red of autumn maples, and the silver of winter frost, all woven together into something that was unmistakably Christmas, but contained the love and memory of the entire year. Everyone seemed so peaceful, Alice observed, and indeed they did. Even the Queen of Hearts, whom Alice spotted tending a garden of Christmas roses, moved with gentle grace rather than her usual imperious stomping. Instead of shouting orders, she was softly singing to her flowers, which seemed to glow brighter in response to her voice. Her usual red and black dress had been replaced by robes of deep forest green trimmed with gold, and instead of a crown, she wore a simple circlet of holly leaves that seemed to have grown naturally around her head. The roses in her garden were unlike any Alice had ever seen. They bloomed in colors that had no names, shades that existed somewhere between red and gold, between pink and silver, between white and the palest blue. Each flower was perfectly formed and seemed to radiate its own gentle warmth. As the queen sang to them, the roses swayed gently, as if dancing to her lullaby, and their fragrance filled the air with the scent of love and contentment. Near the rose garden, Alice spotted the Duchess, but the harsh, sharp-featured woman she remembered had been transformed into someone almost motherly. She sat on a comfortable bench, holding what appeared to be a baby, though on closer inspection, Alice realized it was a piglet wrapped in the softest Christmas blankets, sleeping peacefully in the Duchess's arms. The Duchess rocked gently, humming the same lullabies that seemed to permeate this entire realm, her face soft with genuine affection. The playing cards were there too, but instead of their usual frantic painting of roses, they worked together in peaceful harmony, decorating a series of Christmas trees with ornaments that seemed to paint themselves. The cards moved with careful deliberation, consulting with each other in whispers, and Alice noticed that their usual fear was completely gone, replaced by the joy of creating something beautiful together. Even the caterpillar was present, but instead of sitting atop his mushroom in his usual haughty manner, he had transformed into a beautiful butterfly with wings that looked like stained glass windows depicting Christmas scenes. He fluttered gently from flower to flower in the Christmas gardens, and wherever he landed, the flowers seemed to grow more vibrant and beautiful. Christmas magic, the White Rabbit explained as they continued their leisurely stroll. It brings out the best in everyone, smooths the rough edges, and helps us remember what truly matters. Love, friendship, warmth, and peace. They passed the Cheshire Cat, who was not perched mischievously in a tree as usual, but was instead lying contentedly by a fireplace that somehow existed outdoors without any walls to contain it. His grin was softer now, less mysterious, and more genuinely happy. As Alice and the White Rabbit approached, he raised his head and spoke in a voice like honey and warm milk. "Good evening, Alice," the Cheshire Cat purred. "Lovely night for a Christmas walk, isn't it? The stars are particularly beautiful tonight." He gestured with his tail toward the ceiling, where the artificial stars did indeed seem to twinkle with unusual brilliance. Alice looked up and gasped softly. The stars were moving in slow, graceful patterns, creating designs that looked like snowflakes, Christmas trees, and other holiday shapes before dissolving and reforming into new configurations. It was like watching the most beautiful slow-motion fireworks display imaginable. "Would you like to sit by the fire for a while?" the Cheshire Cat asked. "I find it quite soothing to watch the flames dance, very conducive to peaceful thoughts." Alice was indeed beginning to feel wonderfully drowsy, lulled by the warmth, the gentle music, and the overall atmosphere of complete safety and contentment. She settled onto a cushion that appeared beside the fireplace, a large, soft pillow that seemed to be stuffed with clouds. The fire crackled softly, its flames dancing in mesmerizing patterns that seemed to tell wordless stories of comfort and home. The White Rabbit settled beside her, and the Cheshire Cat curled up on her other side, his purr a gentle rumble that seemed to resonate with the peaceful rhythm of this magical place. Other familiar faces began to gather around the fire. The Dormouse, naturally drowsy but fighting sleep to enjoy the Christmas gathering, Tweedledum and Tweedledee, for once not arguing but instead sharing a large picture book of Christmas stories, and even the playing cards, who had set aside their painting duties to sit quietly and enjoy the warmth. "Tell me about Christmas here," Alice said softly, her voice already growing heavy with the peaceful drowsiness that seemed to permeate this place. The White Rabbit's eyes grew warm with memory. "Every day is Christmas here during the season," he began, his voice taking on the cadence of a gentle bedtime story. "We wake each morning to fresh snow and the sound of distant bells. The trees decorate themselves overnight, growing new ornaments like fruit, and the cottages warm themselves with fires that never need tending. The river," added the Cheshire Cat, his voice a sleepy purr, "sometimes flows with hot chocolate instead of water, and on very special nights it flows with starlight itself." Alice watched the flames dance and felt her eyelids growing heavy. "What about presents?" she asked drowsily. "Oh, we give those too," said the March Hare, who had wandered over with his knitting. "But they're different sorts of presents. We give each other peaceful dreams, restful sleep, warm thoughts, and gentle memories. The kind of gifts that make the heart feel light and the spirit feel at home." The Mad Hatter approached with a tray, but instead of tea, he was serving something that smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. "Christmas milk," he explained softly, offering Alice a delicate cup. "It helps with peaceful sleep and pleasant dreams." Alice accepted the warm cup gratefully. The liquid inside was white as fresh snow and tasted like all the best parts of Christmas morning, the excitement without anxiety, the joy without overwhelm, the love without complication. As she sipped it slowly, she felt herself sinking deeper into the soft cushion, her body becoming as light and peaceful as the snow that continued to fall gently from the starry ceiling. "Are you tired, dear Alice?" asked the White Rabbit gently. Alice nodded, though she didn't want this magical evening to end. "A little," she admitted, "but it's such a good kind of tired, like after a perfect day." "The very best kind," agreed the Dormouse, who was already mostly asleep, but managed to open one eye. "The kind of tired that leads to dreams of sugar plums and snow angels." The creatures around the fire began to settle into their own restful positions. The Cheshire Cat's purr grew softer and more rhythmic. The March Hare set aside his knitting and curled up in his chair, and even the playing cards arranged themselves into a neat sleeping pile. The Mad Hatter dimmed the lights on the Christmas tree nearby, leaving just the warm glow of the firelight to illuminate their cozy gathering. "Will I remember this?" Alice asked softly, her words barely above a whisper. "You'll remember it like a beautiful dream," the White Rabbit assured her. "Sometimes clear and vivid, sometimes soft around the edges, but always warm and comforting. And whenever you need to feel this peaceful, whenever you need to remember that magic is real and kindness exists, you'll be able to return here in your heart." Alice felt herself being covered with the softest blanket she had ever experienced. It seemed to be woven from moonbeams and snowflakes, weightless but perfectly warm. The fire crackled gently, the music grew softer, and the artificial snow continued its slow, hypnotic dance from the starry ceiling above. As she drifted towards sleep, Alice became aware of all the gentle sounds around her, the soft breathing of her friends, the whisper of falling snow, the distant sound of church bells from the world above, and underneath it all, the quiet pulse of this magical place, like a great heart beating with love and peace. The White Rabbit began to hum a lullaby, his voice joining the chorus of gentle sounds. The melody was "Silent Night," but sung so softly and peacefully that it seemed less like a song and more like the sound of contentment itself made audible. Alice's last conscious thought was how perfect this moment felt, surrounded by friends warm and safe, in a place where Christmas magic was real and every day could end this peacefully. She felt herself smiling as sleep claimed her, her dreams already beginning to fill with images of snow and starlight, warm fires and gentle friends. The fire continued to burn softly, its light playing over the sleeping forms gathered around it. The Christmas trees kept their gentle watch, their lights twinkling like captured stars. The river flowed quietly, reflecting the endless sky above, and the snow continued its eternal, peaceful dance. In this magical realm beneath the winter earth, where time moved differently and kindness was the only rule, Alice slept the deepest, most restful sleep of her life, surrounded by the gentle magic of Christmas and the warm presence of true friendship. Her breathing was slow and peaceful, her face serene, and her dreams were filled with all the wonder and joy that Christmas could bring. And in the world above, the real snow continued to fall, covering Alice's footprints in the garden, as if her midnight journey to Wonderland's Christmas celebration had been nothing more than a beautiful dream, though perhaps dreams in the end are the most real magic of all. The White Rabbit adjusted his soft red waistcoat one final time before settling down beside the fire to keep watch over their sleeping guest. In his pocket, his Christmas watch ticked not with anxiety, but with the steady, peaceful rhythm of perfect time. Time enough for rest, time enough for dreams, time enough for the gentle magic of Christmas to work its quiet wonders on a weary world. And so Alice slept, peaceful and warm, in the heart of Christmas magic, where every breath was a blessing and every dream a gift, until the gentle morning light would eventually, softly, kindly call her home